Good afternoon and welcome to a Thursday edition of the PHLY Eagle Show. We are brought to you by Do Dat Dental Group. I'm Zach Berman. That's Fran Duffy. And we are 6 days away from the first practice of training camp. The hardest time of the year on the PHLY Eagles Show is from the draft to training camp. And we are almost finished there. We almost have just daily football reports. Well, we have daily football reports regardless, but daily updates with the Eagles. Stuff changes, stuff's going on. Fran, are you as excited as I am for the football season around the corner?
Very, very excited. I would think that means your sleep's going to be getting better, right? That's what everyone wants to know.
Yeah, yeah. In case my wife's watching right now, yes, my sleep will get better. Yes, my sleep will get better. I will work on it. I'll make sure I get to bed at a reasonable hour. But honestly, I'm excited. I'm excited because we had a short or a mini pod as we call it on Saturday about like our favorite things in training camp. I saw the schedule, the early mornings. I'm excited for that. Looking forward to being able to speak to the coaches, seeing the players, and it also means that we're narrowing down on these position previews. We finished the offense.
Yeah.
Jamie and I spoke about the linebackers, and we don't have that many days left here, so we got to
No.
squeeze these positions in the shows. We got D line and edge rushers today. This is an important position. The great thing is these are all guys that you scouted. These are guys that it's a younger group, right? And so there's a lot of intrigue, not just about the top of the roster, but throughout the roster at this position.
Yeah, it's a group that, historically we know how much the Eagles organization values the defensive front and the idea of the pass rush, right? And it not necessarily that it's at a crossroads, but it's a little bit different than what Vic Fangio has prioritized in places that he has been as he has continued to build out the roster where piecemeal a pass rush together. Obviously, everyone loves to have blue chip players everywhere, but it always feels like with the Fangio defenses that the impotence is, the importance is on the back to front as opposed to front to back. But this is a talented group, still unproven, but a talented group. I'm excited to dissect a little bit.
Yeah, so we're gonna get into that. Before we do, I just want to let everyone know if you missed it last night, 7 o'clock, we had a fun show. It's been rank week all week this week at PHLY, and we had the Eagles what ifs last night, where we went through 10 what ifs. I thought Fran had great insight on kind of what these sliding doors would have been, some of the butterfly effects of these moves. So make sure you check that out. That was not at our traditional 2 o'clock time, but that did happen last night. So let's get right into this now, and let's start with the defensive tackle, so the interior defensive line here, and obviously the headliner is Jalen Carter. We're all going to be watching Jalen Carter. This falls into the category of we'll see you on September 4th, but as an astute observer of practice, which you and Bo are, like what stands out about Jalen Carter when you watch a practice, when you watch a one-on-one drill with him, what stands out?
I mean, certainly the physical tools stand out. You see the explosiveness for a man. You see the power in his hands, that ability to like shock a blocker right on contact. You look for like that knockback on a guy's helmet, and you just see that constantly with Jalen Carter when he engages. I would say like even going back to his rookie year, in 2023, it was like one play a day that Jalen Carter would make, and you would be like, wow. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was what you would have one moment a day, and I would expect that to continue, obviously. And I think you get to the point now where you expect it to be more than one play a day. Whether it was joint practices, whether it was 11 on 11s or 1-on-1s, you want Jalen Carter to be flashing, and I would expect that here coming into his third season. Bo has done such a great job of illustrating in the past about how defensive tackle it could be a little bit of a slow burn
Yeah.
position. It could take guys a little bit of time to really hit their stride at that spot. We know what Jalen Carter looked like his first 2 years. I think Jeremy Fowler, when he did his top 10 position, players at each position, had him at number 3. That speaks to the talent we're dealing here with a guy that's, again, going into year 3, still ascending. The ceiling is sky high here for Jalen Carter.
Yeah, what I'm expecting is the national reporters to come through, and you start to get these think pieces like could Jalen Carter be the best defensive player in football this year, right? Because I'm telling you, like that is on the table. Certainly, best defensive lineman in football. You spoke about those rankings. This is something that I chatted with Jalen Carter about back in the spring, where you got your Dexter Lawrence and Chris Jones, but Jalen Carter wants to be in that group, right? And I think the talent's there. I think the opportunities there. Uh, One of the big takeaways from his season last year was the conditioning level that he played at, right? And that was a big
Yep.
focus when Clint Hurt came here, when Vic Fangio came here. And I thought, like, he plays every snap in that postseason game. And it's the second to last snap and the last snap on defense when he makes two plays that you could say save the Eagles season, right? I mean, if
Yeah.
he doesn't penetrate the line there and get to Matthew Stafford, that ball could go to Tyler Higbee for the touchdown. So yeah, I mean, I'm expecting Jalen Carter to emerge into an even better version of himself. But the question here at defensive line is not how Jalen Carter looks. It's the other two starters, or the top of the depth chart more than anything else. Milton Williams not here anymore, right? Jordan Davis signs the 5th-year, or I'm sorry, his 5th-year options exercised, which is now it's Bo's favorite graphic ever from the Eagles Twitter account, where it's
Count me
just
in on that.
exercise,
Yep.
exercise, exercise, exercise. Yes. They have to put that out. Um, so, uh, and so Jordan Davis, we'll talk about him, and we'll talk about Moro Ojomo. Those two players are really in the spotlight. I'll turn it over to you. What are you looking for from Jordan Davis this camp and this season?
Yeah, and again, it goes back to the Jalen Carter conversation, where this is a position that can take guys a little bit to be able to find that stride, right? We always, I think, when the optimist with Jordan Davis is like, all right, like this is a guy that is still putting it together and he's showing flashes, but can he reach that ceiling? I feel good about it. You're seeing the flashes every week. If you look at Dexter Lawrence, one of the best players at the position in the NFL. I believe he came in at number 2 on Jeremy Fowler's list, if memory serves. When you're looking at Dexter Lawrence, I don't believe his 5th-year option was picked up by the New York Giants. Like he played that 5 year and then signed that big extension when he really hit. So if you are an optimist with Jordan Davis, you're saying, all right, you follow that plan, maybe he could still reach that ceiling. I'm a little bit hesitant to say that he's gonna. I feel worse about it now than I did a year ago or 18 months ago. That said, I still do think that this is a guy that's the arrow is still pointing up. His best football very well still could be ahead of him. Talking about Jordan Davis, the big thing you want to see, number one, like being on the field on a more consistent basis. We're not going to be able to see that over the course of training camp. So the volume of snaps will be important. But then number two, he take that next step as a rusher? And that's ultimately what you're looking for, is if he's going to earn more snaps, it's going to be because he got better on down. He got better at being able to attack offensive guards and attack offensive centers, where it's not just a flash here and there, but he's got the ability to win as a rusher off the ball and be able to affect the quarterback.
Yeah, so I'm always trying to become a better version of myself, especially in observing practice. So how can we tell in practice if I'm watching Jordan Davis in these pass rush reps, like because you're not sacking the quarterback right now.
Right.
You can get in his face and they blow the play dead. But generally speaking, like are you looking for how he can disengage blockers? Are you like, is it the first step? What will be an indicator that he's improved as a pass rusher?
I think the big thing, what I would like to see personally is it's not necessarily like get off the ball and bench press the offensive lineman backwards. Now, if he's doing that all the time, I love that, right? But you don't
Yep.
want the rare flash to only click, because honestly, that's what he has been, right? The plays that we've seen from him have been when, he's just bigger, more explosive, stronger than the guy across from him. And once in a while, that talent is going to rise to the surface, and he's just going to physically dominate that one individual rep. What you'd like to see is either more of those plays where he physically dominates, or What I'm kind of hoping to see is more where he wins with skill, and you just kind of see, hey, you know what, quick arm over move, and now he's in the backfield.
Yeah.
Or he quickly like swims through. You see a rip move, and he's able to dip his shoulder and get past the guard and get into the backfield. You'd like to see more clips like that, more reps like that, where now that shows, you know what, like he's taking that next step from a technical proficiency standpoint. He's better with his hands now at the top of the rush. He can win off the ball early. If he's able to do that, now we're cooking with gas. And I think the other thing that also gets undersold with Jordan Davis as well, and I think this goes back to the conditioning part of things, is that we all think, oh, well, he's got to get better as a rusher. He's got to get better as a rusher. He is not like a consistently dominant run defender yet either. Certainly better as a run defender than he is as a rusher, but he is not like Linval Joseph in his prime, like where he's like, oh yeah, like this guy. He's not Vita Vea, where it's like, oh, this guy is dynamite against the run, and all right, what he gives you in the pass game is cherry on top. He still needs to get better and more consistent there as well. Not that he's bad, but I'd like to be able to see that step up as well in that phase of the game.
Yeah, he was at I think 445 snaps last year, right? So that's what, like 20 to 25 a game, and you're going to need to see that jump. And it's not just conditioning, right? It's impact on the game, right? I mean, I think the conditioning, and I'll give him credit. He did improve as the season progressed, and Vic Fangio said, like, you saw in the playoffs him have an impact. I was at a camp the other day giving a speech, a little flex there, and I was doing trivia, and it's like, who are the players who had sacks in the Super Bowl, right? And Jordan Davis, he was on the sack sheet in the Super Bowl. So you can see him. You don't have to squint to see a version of Jordan Davis that is one of the better defensive tackles in the league. That's why the Eagles exercised that fifth-year option. But it needs to be done on a more consistent basis, and we will see what happens here during training camp. So then let's slide over now to probably the most intriguing defensive tackle this summer. Like the one who is going to be the guy who really needs to take a step up this year, and that's Moro Ojomo. Moro Ojomo actually played more, or it's actually Moro Ojomo now. It's the original way. I keep going. It's Moro Ojomo now. So and Bo will get into the background of the name change and change back. But Moro Ojomo or Ojomo at 490 snaps. I got so used to saying Ojomo that now it's like I'm trying to figure out which way to go. He was at 490 snaps last year. He was really pushing Milton Williams' playing time later in the year, right? Milton Williams now one of the highest paid defensive players in the NFL, and Moro was pushing him for playing time. This is someone who I know you liked him coming out of Texas. The development from year 1 to year 2 was huge. Now year 2 to year 3. He's a top 3 defensive lineman for the Eagles. He's going to have a big role on this defense. What's the expectation for Moro this summer?
Yeah, I think for me, obviously, with the expanded role, now you're hoping that he flashes pretty consistently. And he did flash, whenever he was out there, working with the second and third team units in years past. But now, like you said, he's going to be works team unit more often than not. You're going to see him in nickel. You're going to see him in base. You're going to see him in sub. So I think when you're looking at Moro Ojomo, the big thing is just continuing to honestly hear his name and see, like, everyone write down, oh, what number was that? Who did you? Oh, was that Ojomo again? Like you want that to be kind of the buzz on the sideline for us in the media corps. And I think when you're looking at him, the physical skill set stands out when you're looking at Moro. Yeah, this is a kid who's got outstanding length, a great first step. He's really explosive. He's strong. He's powerful. The big thing with why he fell so late in the draft was that he didn't have numbers at Texas, but all the efficiency metrics were extremely high. He was extremely young. He arrived at college when he was 16. So even though he's a 4th or 5th year guy coming out, he was still a 21-year-old rookie. So this is a guy who's still young, still coming into his own. Again, he's another player, where it's like, all right, if he continues to take those next steps, you're excited about what his future could look like. And the Eagles are hoping that some of his highest points, we're going to be able to see them earlier rather than later here this year.
Was a 16-year-old Fran Duffy ready to go to college? Like, could you have
no?
Could you have hung in Austin at 16, 17 years old? No?
I mean, Could I have? Yes. Should I have? Absolutely not. I think that would have been a disaster. I think that yeah, we all take our own take our own time, take our own
Yeah.
journey.
I guess
How about you?
I mean, I'll defer to Julia here because Julia knew me at 16.
Julie's in the chat. Yep.
I don't think I'm much different at six. I don't think I was much like different at 18 than I was at 16. I certainly wasn't any taller at 18 than I was 16. And but no, I think that I was probably one of those like 14-year-olds going on to 40 back when I was 14. And so I mean I would have looked out of place, but I don't think like I would have been um I don't think I was much different when I got to college than I was at 16 years old. I think when I graduated college, I was probably a little bit different. But I think at like my my sophomore year to my senior year in high school, yeah, besides like, you know, 4 at bats in baseball during that period, I was probably just same. I'll defer to Julia though. Julia has a keen sense of people. Um, so let's go. Well here I was going to make a natural transition to an older college player, Ty Robinson, but I do want to flesh out this Moro Ojomo conversation a little bit more because you talked about the versatility that he had and the
Yep.
jump. Now, statistically, it's not like he had this great year. I mean, he didn't have his first sack until the postseason, right? But you saw him have an impact on games. Is he going to have to be a threat as a pass rusher this year? Is it like and I know this is a stretch to say when you saw Milton Williams' contract, but can he be what Milton Williams was last year? Like, is that reasonable to expect Moro to be what Milton was last year?
It's probably a little lofty to expect him to be what Milton was last year. Now you can expect, is he what Milton was in year two? I think that is certainly an expectation that's achievable, right? And I think that when you're looking at Moro, the Eagles are putting a lot on him because it's reasonable to expect that Jordan Davis does not take that next step. And if Jordan Davis does not take that next step and his role doesn't change, well, then you need Moro to play a lot of snaps inside. And so I do think he's got the skill set to be able to do it. I think he's got the ability to be a big-time pass rusher and run defender, much in the same way that Milton was. We all talk about Milton's ability to get after the quarterback, and he's a former defensive end at Louisiana Tech. He was also like a dynamite run defender. And so when I look at Moro, he's got that same twist where he can hold up the point at the point of attack in the run game. He can win from multiple techniques, but he also has that pass rush upside as well.
Now, the player that I think is going to have a bigger role in this team than I don't want to say people think. I don't know what people think, but than maybe what is being like written about or discussed right now is Ty Robinson. And you talk about the age with Moro. Ty Robinson's on the opposite end of that. You know, this is what a 24-year-old rookie, like a 6-year play. Was he 6 or 7 year player at? I think 6 year player at
6 year.
Nebraska. Yeah,
7 year
six.
Bo would have I don't know,
Yeah,
thrown a
true.
fit on the
Yeah,
set in draft night.
yeah, yeah. 6 year player in Nebraska. And you know, to me, you don't take a 6 year player, 24-year-old, uh, with the expectation that like he's going to develop 2 3 years from now. It's thinking like, all right, this guy's ready to play. And when you watch, you know, there was a great film session that Fran did with the diehards going through all the draft picks, and you could see that like you could see Ty Robinson physically is there, right? He's ready for the NFL.
Yep.
Athletically, you look at the athletic testing, he's there, he's ready for the NFL. So can Ty Robinson actually be a key piece of this defensive line rotation?
Yeah, and that's why honestly, like when you sit back and you think about the Ty Robinson selection, selecting an older player who might be a little bit more ready-made coming out of the box makes sense considering the risk you are taking with Jordan Davis and with Moro Ojomo. Because if Jordan Davis does not take that next step, and if Ojomo isn't quite ready for the limelight, well, now you have another piece that can come in, and it could be a little bit of a timeshare there between Ojomo and with Robinson. Now, if Ojomo does hit, all right, so Ojomo slides in. He becomes Milton Williams right now. Well, now Ty Robinson, you can bring him along. He can be what Ojomo was last year, which was a very valuable rotational piece. And I think that would be the idea for Ty Robinson, and based off my evaluation. But I think when you're looking at that addition, thinking back, I think in the moment I was like, solid player, but not a guy I'm like going crazy for. But I do think that it makes sense given his high floor when you look at the dynamic in the rest of the room.
Yeah, I like that he can play multiple spots along that defensive line. I think there's similarities to Moro and to Milton Williams there. Now he's older than Moro Ojomo, right? And so the age keeps coming up because I don't view him the way I viewed Keely Ringo when Keely Ringo was a fourth round pick for the Eagles, right? Like Keely Ringo was like, all right, this is a down the line pick. This is a guy who the Eagles want and they want to develop him. I think we need to see Ty Robinson look like he belongs from the first, preseason game, first few weeks of camp, because I'm expecting Ty Robinson to be active and to play a role on the team this year.
Yeah, I think that going in, and we have some questions in the chat about like, all right, how much 5-tech will Ty Robinson be? Like that is his best role. And when you're looking at the fronts that Vic Fangio uses, you're often going to get those guys, because Ojomo is the same way, Milton Williams the same way, where they're going to play head up over the tackle. When you're talking about a 5 technique, you are lined up head up over the tackle, maybe slightly outside, like the outside shade of the offensive tackle. So you're playing in a phone booth there, like head to head. That's where Robinson. To me, that's where he is best cast, just because of his body type. But he can, again, to your point, he can kick inside to be a traditional 3 technique. He can line up even a step further outside and still be effective. So I think that versatility will definitely play a role in terms of what his usage looks like here as a rookie.
Now, Thomas Booker's watching this at home saying, you went through the whole A block and you haven't talked about me yet. Thomas, I apologize. We are going to talk about you in the B block, so stick around. I want to tell everyone about Golden Nugget Jewelers, okay? Because for the past 30 years, Golden Nugget Jewelry, Golden Nugget Jewelers has operated out of the very same location in the heart of Philadelphia. And my wife wants me to make sure I know exactly where they are. It is right there on 8th and Chestnut in downtown Philly. Customers from across PA, New Jersey, and even Baltimore and New York City have come to Golden Nugget Jewelers to find the perfect engagement ring or wedding band. Their staff is highly trained and dedicated to providing a personalized shopping experience. And look, I could tell you everything that the ad says. I think a stronger endorsement is my wife keeps saying Golden Nugget Jewelers, Golden Nugget Jewelers, Golden Nugget Jewelers. I get it. I know there's taglines where Philly gets engaged, but if you're already married, you can still go to Golden Nugget Jewelers, right? You can get great pieces there. They have a vast selection of engagement rings and wedding bands, but also high-end watches, fashion jewelry, sparkling diamond necklaces, bracelets, earrings, and more. And you can also get a final cleaning and written appraisal with every engagement ring purchase. You deserve an expert and the best price. Golden Nugget Jewelers, where Philly gets engaged. Visit goldennuggetjewelry.com to learn more.
All right, Fran, here's an impression of me from yesterday.
Okay.
That's me walking into my house, sweating like a pig because it is feeling like a sauna in there.
Yeah, I mean, you know how it is. This time of year, this Philly heat, it's no joke.
So, what do I do? Do I go jump in a lake? Not going to happen. So, I just got a bunch of ice, held it, rubbed it on my face, stuffed it down my shirt, stuffed it down my pants. Only way I could think to cool down.
I mean, stop being the stereotypical dad, though. Turn on the AC. It's time to fire that thing up.
I don't want to be, I want to waste money, be energy efficient.
Well, look, instead of icing yourself out or jumping into a lake, you could just check out Pico's energy-saving rebates. They've got deals on Energy Star cooling equipment that actually work and cut down on your bills.
So, no more ice down my pants?
No, you could skip the ice, save the ice, and you throw in my drinks when I come over.
The same ice?
No, we'll change the ice up.
Okay, fine. That's what's up.
All right, well, just head over to pico.com/ways to save. They've got tips for everything. Heating, cooling, lighting, you name it.
That ad remains the highlight of every show. We're gonna get to the defensive tackles here, but before we do, I just wanted to deviate real quick. There's no graceful transition in this. On a somber note, Brian Breuman, a former Eagle, special teams player, linebacker, a Super Bowl champion with the Eagles, passed away. Our thoughts are with Brian Breuman's family and his former teammates and all his friends. You've seen an outpouring of support for him. I covered Brian Breuman. I don't. It would be disingenuous for me to suggest I knew him well. I enjoyed the conversations that I had with him, but I know that his teammates always talked about like his intensity, his passion out there, the way he played the game, and he was someone who was liked in the locker room. You've seen that from teammates. I don't know, Fran, if you got a chance to get to know him at all, but yeah, very tragic death at the age of 38.
Yeah, obviously, all thoughts, with his family and his loved ones. It's, to your point, like I won't say that I was like super close with Brian and develop a relationship with him, but what I will say is that truly like a unique guy, right? In terms of like, things that, how he carried himself off the field, like it's just a unique guy. But when there are a lot of players that are in an NFL locker room who are really unique in that way that not everybody's able to relate to, but he is a guy that it feels, and hearing a lot of his former teammates talk about him, not just like today, but over the course of the last couple of weeks as the report came out, he was sick and was fighting, this form of cancer. All of them were like, he was one of my favorite teammates from that year. He was one of my favorite teammates in Houston. This guy that was able to connect with so many different people from all walks of life. And I think that speaks to his character.
Well said. Well said. So again, no graceful transition here, but we will move back on to the defensive tackles. And the first one up is the player I spoke about before the break, and that's Thomas Booker. Thomas Booker was a part of the team last year, made the roster out of training camp and the preseason, was a testament to the player development program that the Eagles have, that Connor Barwin helps oversee. And I liked what I saw from him last summer. He didn't have like a major role on the team last year. Played 166 snaps, but someone who is the backup nose tackle, the Jordan Davis, I imagine, and I would guess that he keeps that job.
Yeah, I think so. I think when you're looking at Thomas Booker, one of the things I like is that he's another one, kind of like what I was saying with Ojomo, where he hold up well at the point of attack, but he also has some quickness too. He can make plays on the other side of the line. We saw that in flashes, in spurts last year, albeit in a small sample, just because of the depth up front. I think when you're looking at Booker, there's reason to be excited about what he could look like with a little bit of an expanded role, 2025.
Yeah. He's also, I know when Bo watches back or listens to it, Bo's going to uproll his eyes when I say this. He's a smart guy. He went to Stanford. But he is, I always enjoy speaking to Thomas Booker. He has good perspective on things. And yeah, the Eagles don't really have that backup nose in terms of like the body type of a Jordan Davis, and Thomas Booker fits that. So really it's the defensive tackles are fairly well defined. There are two players here who will try to push to make the roster. The first one's Byron Young, who interestingly, the Eagles, they signed him off waivers last year. He stayed on the team. He was on the 53, went on IR. He's someone who obviously the Eagles saw upside in. I'm going to ask you about him in a second. But then the other player too is Gabe Hall. Gabe Hall. It was an undrafted rookie last year who was on the practice squad throughout the year. And the Eagles brought him back. He has good length. And there were people who thought he was a draftable player a year ago. So Gabe Hall and Byron Young, two players that you scouted relatively recently. What's your view of them going into the summer?
Yeah, I had a higher grade on Gabe Hall when he was coming out of Baylor, because you saw the length, you saw the explosiveness, that ability to make plays on the other side of the line. He was a little bit unrefined still, and you saw like, all right, like he's going to need a little time. But I thought that the tools there showed up in a more consistent way. Whereas with Byron Young, I just kind of saw him as a replacement level, kind of rotational backup nose, right? Like, to me, I think when we're talking about the difference between him and Thomas Booker, Thomas Booker consistently is able to make plays on the other side of the line. I talk about that initial quickness, and he's got that ability to penetrate. Byron Young never really showed that to me when he was at Alabama, and so I kind of saw him in more just kind of a deep, deep end of the depth chart, kind of back end roster rotational player. I was shocked when he was a 3rd round pick from the Raiders a couple years back, just because I didn't quite see that level of upside. So when I'm comparing him to Gabe Hall, I think Hall is a guy I'm more excited by, a little bit more intrigued by coming into the summer. I'm interested to see what he can look like here in year 2.
Yeah, I think actually Byron Young, I believe got called. They called the wrong Byron Young at one point. Was it the Raiders? Uh, there was some story because there was the other Byron Young in the draft, and one of the
Byron
Byron
Young that went to the Rams. Yeah, right.
From it got called when the Raiders picked him. Yeah. But Byron Young, this is the Alabama Byron Young, not the Tennessee Byron Young.
Correct.
So we'll see how
the Tennessee Byron Young would have looked better with the Raiders.
Exactly
Considering what he's done with the Rams.
Exactly. So we'll see how those guys look this summer, but they are probably on the outside looking in, at least going into camp. So then moving over to the edge rushers, and I have a lot of questions about edge rushers this summer. I mean, I think this is a position where the Eagles could still add. We'll see if that happens. They're obviously hoping that some of these lottery ticket players emerge, but the key player in this group is Nolan Smith, the 2023 first round pick. He was a first round pick. I just want to make that clear. Okay. So if you predicted him to go in the first round and for the Eagles to take him, and he was the Eagles' first round pick that year. And a slow start to his rookie season. And then last year, final preseason game, not necessarily, he's dressing for that game. He's like the only one who was dressing for that game among the starters, and really came on late last year, emerged, had a huge year, in these last 15 games, including the playoffs, 10.5 sacks. This is poised to be a breakout player. What's your view of Nolan Smith going into year 3?
Excited to see what he looks like, because we saw on the back end of last season, what he was able to do in terms of taking that next step as a rusher. He's always been a really stout, strong run defender, really violent player at the point back. We've talked about the plays endlessly that he made in the postseason, in that area of the game where he takes out Elgton Jenkins, he takes out Trey Smith. Right? What he did in that postseason run was extremely valuable for this Eagles defense. But it's not just those kind of highlight plays. He's also been extremely consistent in that area of the game. So run game, you feel really good. Pass game was the question with him coming out. He was not a refined rusher. He had power, he had explosiveness, he had length, the ability to turn the corner and close. So he had all the physical attributes. It's just that he didn't put it together when he was at Georgia. You only saw it in little spurts, and the production, like I said, was not there really until his final year, which was the first time he became like a full-fledged starter for that defense. So I think when you're looking at it, all right, can he take that next step in that area, build off what we saw in the second half of 2024, where he was one of the more productive pass rushers in the entire NFL down the stretch. So I think when you're looking at Nolan Smith, health is the big thing, because he had the shoulder injury, in Super Bowl. So I do want to ask what's your understanding of his health as we go into camp. But I think when you're looking at Nolan, health is the big thing. And then if he continue to build from a technical side of it, from a mental approach side of it as a rusher, if he does that, like, he's going to be one of the better young rushers in football this year.
Yeah, I think that he's going to be healthy at the start of camp. That's my expectation. He was really progressing this spring. You saw him strike in the final mandatory minicamp, or the only day of mandatory minicamp. So yeah, you're absolutely right. He's the headliner in this group. I think double-digit sacks is reasonable given the way that he finished last season. The versatility's there, the playing styles there. I heard Nolan Smith when he was on the Exciting Mics. And by the way, make sure you check out the Exciting Mics today with Chris Long. We have a new one out today. Great job, Brenna, Julia, everyone in our in the PHLY production staff putting that together. I look at Nolan Smith, and I think that his ability to do everything out there. You see a player who's 240 pounds, and with that athleticism, and you're thinking, all right, pass rusher. No, you know what? Actually, he does really well is his ability to like set an edge, the chase down play. I mean, he is such a complete player for them. Nick Sirianni's expecting him to be a leader of this team. Brandon Graham's expecting him to be a leader of this team. So I am eager to see what Nolan Smith looks like year 3. And Nolan Smith's always been a fairly confident guy, at least outwardly. You know, I'm not in his inner soul to know if that's the case. But I think that the way he finished last year just needs needs to lift that confidence even more. Expecting a huge year from Nolan Smith this year.
Yeah, I agree, and the Eagles are hoping for it. Obviously you let Milton Williams go, you let Josh Sweat walk in free agency, so Brandon Graham retires. They need a guy like Nolan Smith to be able to take that next step as a rusher and go a big way towards this defense, trying to replicate some semblance of the effectiveness they had last year.
Any list of breakout Eagles this year will include Jalyx Hunt, and part of that is because of the playing style. Part of that's because of the opportunity. Josh Sweat's not here anymore. Brandon Graham's not here anymore. Jalyx Hunt, as Vic Fangio said, is going to play a lot more this year than he did last year. And I'm expecting him to be the starter. Jalyx Hunt's someone who a few years ago was playing safety at Cornell. So he was well educated, going to an Ivy League school. But he wasn't playing, he wasn't playing edge rusher then. 2 years ago, he was playing edge rusher at a small school. I mean, I've watched his college film, and it looks like it was shot with a camcorder in 1998, right? I mean, this isn't like watching SEC film. But Jalyx Hunt did pop on that film, and he popped last year. I think, I expected last year to be more of a redshirt year than it was, and he's someone who was in there, was playing, and now year 2, it's like, Jalyx Hunt, you're a starter. What do you think of Jalyx Hunt this year?
First off, shots fired at Houston Baptist and their video team for whatever equipment they've got down there. I will say I enjoy watching Jalyx Hunt because that would be a school where when you're watching the film, you might be able to see like a bouncy house in the back, outside the stadium. All kinds of stuff happening, out in the stands. So those games are always. Now to your question about Jalyx Hunt. I am hoping that we see a guy that takes that next step, because look, the tools are all there. I posted something. It was the day he got drafted. Going back to last April when he got drafted by the Eagles, and you look at his length, and this is all just like combine measurements. His combination of length and explosiveness, like vertical jump numbers, there were only like 3 or 4 rushers drafted in the first 3 rounds in the last 10 years that had the same combination. It was like Garrett, Donnell Hunter, and like another Pro Bowl rusher, and Jalyx Hunt, right? Like the tools are unique here when you're looking at what Jalyx Hunt brings to the table. I think the big thing is, can he continue to just kind of put it all together mentally? Is he able to take that next step? A position he has not played often. He was thrown into the fire last year. Earlier, I think that they would have liked, and he had to become a full-time player, more of a full-time player after Brandon Graham's injury, off the bench. He did fine. Obviously he had the sack in the Super Bowl. He became a little bit more impactful down the stretch, but was a guy who was still swimming a little bit, which is to be expected. I go back to like the career development plan with Josh Sweat, where year 1 was a redshirt year. Year 2, you started to see really good flashes, and year 3 was when he started to break out. I think with Jalyx Hunt, you're hoping that's accelerated a little bit because of the need at the position for the Eagles. But I think at the end of the day, this is a guy that's got all the traits. He's a great kid. By all accounts, hard worker off the field. So I'm excited for what could be the next really strong Eagles pass rusher.
Now, Professor Selman, we know, watches every single press conference, and I appreciate that Professor Selman has that type of dedication. Maybe those in the audience now, in the chat watching, or either watching the replay or listening to the replay, haven't heard Jalyx Hunt speak yet. I would recommend this year, whenever you see clips post game during the week, listen to this guy. This guy's gonna be a fan favorite. I mean, he has that type of personality that I think fans are gonna gravitate toward. He certainly has, I think, a story that fans can appreciate. I mean, he earned everything. I remember talking to him at early last season, where I was like, what perspective do you have now? What's something that you appreciate about the NFL that like one of these SEC guys wouldn't. And he like thought about it, and he's like the equipment staff, right? Like the idea that you can just get any piece of equipment that you want. Like this is all, it's not rationed in that regard. Like it's, he has an appreciation for being in the NFL. I think fans are gonna just soak up Jalyx Hunt, especially if the play matches the opportunity, matches the personality. So pay attention to Jalyx Hunt this year and stick around a few minutes from now to see who could push Jalyx Hunt for playing time. Could it be Azeez Ojulari? Could it be Josh Uche? Is there a potential trade down the line? Could it be a draft pick that Fran did a good job breaking down? You'll hear that in a second. I want to talk to everybody here about our good friends at Empire Today. I'm not in the studio today. I'm at home. But when I'm at the studio and I look down at those floors and I say, you know what? If we need new floors, if we need to fix this mouse problem, the place we need to go is Empire Today. When I look here, I have carpet in my office here, and I say, if I need to upgrade this, I can go to Empire Today, because just like your favorite team needs a home court or home field or home ice advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts. They're dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. So you're watching the PHLY Eagles show today, and you know that you have these hosts here who are studying the Eagles every day. That's kind of how Empire Today is with floors. You're not getting someone who was on sinks yesterday. No, you're getting someone who's dedicated to flooring all the time. With Empire Today, too, you also get clear upfront and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day, because we all know nobody likes to wait. Schedule a free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHLY. Yes, you heard that right. A $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit Empire Today/PHLY for full details.
Yeah, you brought up the mice, and maybe if you were someone who wanted to make a wager on whether or not you would see the mice to the PHLY studios, I don't know that that's available on Bet365, but maybe we make some calls. Let's see if we can get some of the mice wagers up there. But we know our friends at Bet365, they've got 90 million users worldwide. They live stream 780,000 events each year. And not only do they have the early payout offers that we always talked about all offseason long across the NBA and across the NHL, they've also got it for Major League Baseball, which is the big show in town right now until football starts. And with the Bet365 early payout offer with Major League Baseball, if you are a winner, if your team goes 5 runs ahead, which it's been a little bit shaky if you're a Phillies fan. The bats haven't always been alive. Maybe that changes after the break here. But win or lose, sign up, use the code PHLY 365. And again, because all that happens for you to win is the team goes out 5 runs ahead. That the parlay selections marked as winners. Download the app and use the code PHLY365 when you sign up. Again, you also want to take advantage of that open account offer. New customers get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use that code PHLY365. You deposit $10. You place a bet for $5, you get $150 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. Lose. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
So let's get to some super chats here before we finish the edge rushers. First one, Chase Daniel, Plainview. We always appreciate your contribution. What if the 2020 Colts won in the wild card round? So is this a reference to Nick Sirianni's interview process? I see you have a smirk on your face. Is there something here that I'm not sure with? I guess they wouldn't have been able to interview Sirianni until later on, so maybe they hire Josh Daniels. I'm sorry, Josh McDaniels.
Didn't the Sirianni interview happen until later anyway, just because of how late Doug got fired?
Yeah, but they weren't in the playoff, or their season was finished at that point. And so when you're saying the 2020 Colts, that's the 2020 season, the wild card around that year. Yeah, Chase, chime in the chat what specifically this is referring to. If this is referring to them not getting Sirianni, then yeah, my guess is Josh McDaniels is the coach, and perhaps things are a lot different there. I think he would have been the number 2. Perhaps the Eagles would have waited to talk to Sirianni, but you do have to wait quite a bit at that point. So that's a good question. I don't have a good answer there. Could this have been like, would Philip Rivers have returned and they wouldn't have been able to trade Carson Wentz there? I'm not sure what specifically that would be, but that I like all these what ifs. These are always fun. Then Polar Jam with a $5 contribution. Polar Jam, you are the man. Thank you, Polar Jam. To my chagrin, I found a mouse in my apartment this morning. Do you have any tips to get rid of this adorable menace? So I'll defer to Fran in a second, but I did see in our studio the other day, Andrew, outstanding producer Andrew, created a mousetrap. And I've heard the expression, there's always a better mousetrap. I haven't seen a better mousetrap than this. It was peanut butter.
I've never heard that. I've never heard of that expression ever.
You've never heard?
Made that up.
You've
There's
never
always
heard
a
that?
better mousetrap.
All right. I'm looking this up. There's a better mousetrap. Yeah. Am I wrong? Isn't this expression? Build a better mousetrap. Yeah. Yeah. Build a better mousetrap. It's from Ralph Waldo Emerson. If they build a better mousetrap is an expression. It shows that even having
that is not what now you're just looking for mousetrap sayings. That's not what you said.
Isn't that what I said? Build a better mousetrap?
No, you said better mousetrap.
I said what?
You said there's always a better mousetrap.
Okay, yeah. So you have to build a better mousetrap. Build a better mousetrap is an expression meaning that you can always find a slightly better solution to the problem, right? Build a better mousetrap.
Okay.
So I saw Andrew. It was something. Was there peanut butter inside the bucket?
They love peanut butter. Yeah, they love peanut butter.
Yep. Yeah, and like a piece of wood, like as an incline for the mouse to walk up and to get into that bucket and eat said peanut butter. What's your recommendation for Polar Jam to get rid of the mouse?
Peanut butter and snap traps.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would say try to build a better mousetrap.
I mean, if you want to throw like wood and buckets and stuff like that in there, you can go for it. But I think this don't do the glue, don't do the poison. You do the snap traps. Even and honestly, I remember like being younger and my if we would ever get mice, like we like the live traps where it's like, oh, they crawl in and then the door shuts behind them and then you relocate. Mice get back to the house. Like you have to drive them like mile away if they're gonna not come back to the house. So you don't want to do that unless you're going to drive them miles away and drop them in a random forest somewhere. That's great, but otherwise just do the snap trap.
Yeah, so a few years ago we had mice, and I remember, the kids were downstairs. I was writing, Emily's screaming for me. I come running down. So there's a mouse. And I said, don't worry, the mouse is more scared of you than you are of it. And I went back upstairs to work, and I just think she wanted me to fix this mouse problem, not calm everybody down.
Not to comment on the mouse.
Yeah. I was like, don't worry. The mouse is more scared of you. Just go on with your day. Everything's fine. I don't think that's what she was looking for in that situation. But I'm like, do I look like an exterminator here? Like, what am I supposed to do?
At the end of the day, at least you can go down and say, you just look at Emily and just like, build a better mousetrap and then just go back upstairs.
Build a better, yeah. I was I was keeping everyone calm. I mean, that's my role. Is like, don't get too high, don't get too low. But yeah.
So here's what you do. You open up the oven, turn the oven on to 450, pick a piece of wood, slab it with peanut butter, put it in the back of the oven. When the mouse crawls into the oven, you close the door and you let the oven do all the work. It always does.
There you go. I could have done that. Look, it's better than what happens if we see like deer or something like that. I say, hey, they were here first, right? We took their house. They lived here before we got here. That one doesn't go over well either. So, giving all the husbands out there some things not to say. But yeah, I probably don't want the mouse in my oven, even if the oven does all the work during cooking, huh? Anyways, let's see which edge rusher is going to heat up this year. And among these lottery ticket signings, there are two guys to really watch. And that is Azeez Ojulari, someone who I really advocated for in the free agency process, then Josh Uche. Josh Uche's reached double-digit sacks before. He's someone who Lane Johnson singled out as playing well during the summer. What do you make of these two? And can one of them push Jalyx Hunt to start?
Yeah, I would say that Ojulari is probably the one that I would say is the most likely to try and push him. I would say it's probably not the ideal scenario. I was really high on Azeez Ojulari when he was coming out of Georgia a few years back. He's a player that when they selected Landon Dickerson, Ojulari was a guy who was like, oh, like I would have maybe liked Ojulari in that spot, just because I like the different ways that he could win. He could win with power. He could win with technique and effort. He had the ability to turn the corner as well. But injuries have really taken their toll on him so far during his career in the NFL. And honestly, I think that they're starting to show up on tape where he doesn't have that same level of juice. That ability to turn the corner is not quite there. You'll see him kind of stumble when he's turning. We did that film room session at the studio shortly after free agency, and just going through Ojulari tape, you can kind of see that he's kind of lagging a little bit there from an athleticism standpoint. Now, a year removed from those injuries, maybe that comes up a little bit better here in 2025. But I don't know that I've got like super high expectations for him to come in and be a starter. He could still be a serviceable backup and potentially an impactful backup as a first guy off the bench and help you in rush downs. But I think when you're looking at Ojulari, he's probably just to be like a serviceable replacement level full-time guy and hold up against the run. Whereas with Uche, he's never really been that guy. Like even when he had that I think it was a double-digit sack season in New England, he was more like, all right, hand him up, move him around, do a bunch of different things with him. But on run downs, early downs, you don't really want him holding the point at the point of attack. He is a smaller body. Unlike Nolan Smith, like he's not quite that same kind of forceful presence at the point. It's not that he's not willing. It's just that at that frame doesn't hold up quite as well. And so I think when you're looking at it, I think Ojulari is probably the more likely to be able to stick as a backup. I think Uche is probably more likely to be the impact rusher, like on sub-package downs and things like that, and find a role in that way. So in a way, I think the way I would look at it is like highest ceiling is probably Uche, but I still think it would be in more of a specialized role. Highest floor would be Ojulari, but I'm not like expecting a super high boom there from that signing either. And I don't think either of them are a lock to make the 53.
Interesting. I think Ojulari is a lock to make the 53. Just based on they gave him the most money of all the free agents this year. The role I'm expecting Ojulari to be on the 53. Now we can always see what happens here. He had I think 5 sacks in Kayvon Thibodeau's absence last year, so he showed some flashes there. He had 8 sacks as a rookie. Look, I liked him coming out of Georgia, and I thought that he's someone that the Eagles should target. I was frankly surprised that the price was what it was for him. I thought this was going to be closer to a $10 million a year player. I'm intrigued by Azeez. We'll see how it pans out, but I definitely think that there's talent there, and injury was really the issue. As far as Josh Uche, yeah, I mean, I liked him more 2 years ago in free agency. He's now 2 seasons removed from that 11 and a half sack season that he had with the Patriots in 2022. I've heard, for instance, Lane Johnson talk about how this was a tough guy to block 2 years ago in that season opener. He probably fits the Eagles better than he fit the Chiefs last year. That's actually something Steve Spagnuolo said, or that Andy Reid said it, and I think Spag said it as well, about him undersized. I was curious to see if they would look at him off the ball. We didn't see that during the spring. There's a chance if they need help at summer this summer, they could do that. But these are 2 players who, I think if one of them is a meaningful contributor, then you're happy with that. Not to kind of compare it to Zach Bond and Devin White last year, but
right.
Devin White was the guy who I was wrong. I thought Devin White was going to have a bigger role than Zach Bond, but the Eagles have done this. But the Eagles have done this in the past where they signed multiple guys at a position, Zach Cunningham and Miles Jack, and and Dominican Sue and Linval Joseph, and you're just like, all right, if one of these signings hits, then that's fine. The Eagles have tried this at wide receiver sometimes. So yeah, I'm curious to see which one emerges. And then
I think that to your point about if one of them becomes a reliable role player and piece, that I think that's a win.
Then the sixth round pick here, who look, Fran did an amazing job with the Die Hard Draft Guide. I call it the Fran Duffy Draft Guide, but the Die Hard Draft Guide leading up to the draft. You saw everything you needed to see about Antwaun Powell-Ryland, the Eagles' sixth round pick, 16 sacks last season. That's third in the country. Not great as far as the athletic testing is concerned.
Yep.
He's not. He doesn't have like the body type or the length that you look for. But man, 16 sacks in 2024, 9.5 sacks in 2023. If you think sacks translate, Antwaun Powell-Ryland's an interesting player to watch this summer.
Honestly, when you look at the body type and the production profile and the athletic profile, the body type, very, very reminiscent of Mike Green, who went in the second round and was seen as a first-round quality prospect out of Marshall. He's kind of like that happens every year, where there's like, all right, there's a guy that goes on day one, or in the top 50, but there's a player on day 3 that's kind of the Diet Coke version of it. And when I look at Antwaun Powell-Ryland, I feel like he's like the Diet Coke version of Mike Green. Because I think, again, you're talking about a little bit more of a squattier body, similar from a proportion standpoint to like Bryce Huff. He's got that ability to get off the ball. He's not going to wow you with his like straight line explosiveness, but this is a guy that can turn the corner. He's top of the rush. He's still a little bit of a work in progress in the run game from a technique standpoint, from like a play strength standpoint, but the willingness is there. And again, like the ability to win at the top of the rush, I thought was really good. It was extremely productive, not at a lower level of competition, like in the ACC for 2 years, has been a really productive pass rusher. So where they got him in the draft, I think is fine value. So I'm excited to see what Powell-Ryland can look like. Again, he's same archetype as Uche, as Bryce Huff, where it's going to be, all right, like this is an outside edge rusher, like get him out in space and kind of let him run, and get after the quarterback. That's what you're getting here with Powell-Ryland.
Yeah, and I expect Powell-Ryland to be ahead of Patrick Johnson, KJ Henry, O'Shane Mathis as the other edge rushers here. I know Patrick Johnson has experience with the team, right? And he's someone who actually, I'll give him credit, every summer he pops, right? Like he makes plays during camp.
Yeah.
You get him on the 53. He can play special teams. He contributes during the preseason, but obviously the Eagles didn't feel the need to keep him last year, but they brought him back for a reason. So given the special teams ability, he's someone who could potentially be in the 53-man mix, but I think at least going in the camp, he's on the outside looking in. And then KJ Henry was someone that the Eagles added the middle of last year or late last year after some injuries, and was with the Commanders as a rookie. He actually started 3 games then, was waived last year by the Commanders, but he had some pedigree at Clemson. O'Shane Mathis, a 6th-round pick in 2023. Of that trio that I mentioned, who are you most eager to learn about this summer?
Yeah, I think the one that probably catches my eye most when you're talking about that, Patrick Johnson, only because we know, like, all right, he can come in and he can play special teams. He's got some position flex and that he can play off the edge, or we've seen him moonlight as an off ball, like pure stacked backer as well. Different defense, but you've seen him do it and play that role. I've kind of seen everything I need to see from KJ Henry, not just at Clemson, but here in the NFL. O'Shane Mathis, was on the street for a reason, where it's going to get him. When I say that, I mean like on the pro market. So I think when you're looking at it, to me, Patrick Johnson is the one that would most likely be the one that had to stick. But how do you feel about that trio?
Yeah, I think that Patrick Johnson's special teams ability would give him the edge there. And then, KJ Henry, high character guy, coming out, was a big time recruit when he was at Clemson, 5th round pick in the draft, but never really was the I don't know if these guys really going to factor in to the 53. I hate to call people camp bodies because you never know, but these guys strike me as trying to they're on the third teamers down the depth chart trying to make at least something in camp, or have another team see them in preseason film. There could also potentially be a player from the outside that's added. We'll discuss that next in overtime. So the Eagles, this is the spot where I've said you could see them adding somebody. Von Miller off the board. Von Miller's going to Washington now. So Von Miller is someone who I said, like, could they add him? Obviously has that Fangio background or ring chasing age in his career. Not the case. He's going to Washington. This could be a trade at some point. But do you agree with me that the Eagles could look to upgrade at edge rusher just given what that depth chart looks like?
I think so, because there stands to a reason that you can come in and let's say Jalyx Hunt not quite ready for prime time yet. Maybe he still needs another year of seasoning. And then you look at the other two guys. I mean, the two vets that you brought in, Uche just doesn't quite have it. Ojulari doesn't look like he's there from a health standpoint. So now you have to dip into that next set of guys. And when I look at the pro market, there are names out there, guys that can come in, whether you're looking for like your pure like designated pass rusher or someone that can hold up a little bit better. I mean, a lot of recognizable names on here. Some that have so I'm just going to go through the list. It's just some names that are available. And correct me if I'm wrong on a few of these, but Matthew Judon, unsigned, was in Atlanta last year. Zadarius Smith, signed. Jadeveon Clowney, Shaquille Barrett. Although I think with the retirement stuff with Miami, I think that could get a little bit messy. Preston Smith, Agbani DeMarcus Walker played for Vic Fangio in Denver. Jihad Ward, Philly guy. Carl Lawson, Yannick Ngakoue. So there are names out there. So if the Eagles decide, hey, you know what, we want to go and try and sign one of these guys on the pro market, there are certainly names that they can bring in to help fight with this competition.
Yeah, that's the Zach Cunningham, Miles Jack route of going for the free agent who's kind of lingering during camp. They could also do the Jahan Dotson thing last year, or what they've done in the past with like CJ Gardner-Johnson, which is trade for a player. And I saw in the chat earlier, Tyree Wilson's name came up. But look, we know how he has draft picks at his disposal this summer. He's not just going to give them away, but the Eagles have the flexibility where if there's a spot on the roster where they need someone who can be in the rotation and they're looking for a cost-controlled player, they have the draft inventory to do it. So I would absolutely pay attention to edge rushers as I think that is the top spot. So we're 62 minutes in here. I think the timing worked out well. We did edge rushers, D tackles. Tomorrow will be corners and safeties. I am out of town tomorrow. I'm away with the family this weekend. One last time before camp. You are in tomorrow with who?
With I believe with Handsome Rich. I think Handsome Rich and I are it's either with Rich or Jamie.
Look forward to that. And by the way, Rich Hoffman's newsletter, best in the city.
Unbelievable.
Read it. It is awesome. He's clever, comprehensive. Gets through it. I mean, it is terrific. So make sure you're subscribed to that. Make sure you're a diehard at allphly.com. We have all our what if content up there. We're gonna have a what if tomorrow on all the Philly sports teams, kind of rounded into one there, and then Bo's back next week. Looking forward to that.
We got on Monday.
We got training camp starting next week. The Ospreys coming up. So a lot of fun things going on here at PHLY. Make sure you check that out. Make sure you check out Fran and Rich tomorrow. Until then, thank you to Fran. Thank you to Ethan. I don't want to say intern Ethan because but thank you just to Ethan. Ethan does an outstanding job. Always enjoy when he produces. And if Bo were here, he would say, as always, we love you. I'll say, we'll do better tomorrow. In my case, we'll do better next week. Thanks for watching.
We all silly like the mayor.